stop scrolling, because this moment might just change the trajectory of your life. I'm Tony Robbins, and today I want to speak directly to the part of you that's been knocked down, rejected, or told you'll never make it. Let's be real. We've all failed. We've all had moments where we question our worth, our dreams, our purpose. But here's the truth. Failure isn't the end. It's feedback. It's life's way of saying, you're in the game. Every great story, every breakthrough, every legend you admire, they all began the same way, flat on their back, staring at the ceiling, wondering if they should quit. But they didn't. They got back up. And not just to try again. They came back stronger, smarter, and sharper. Today, I'm going to show you how you can do the same. Failure, it's one of those words that makes people uncomfortable. We're trained from a young age to see it as something shameful, something final. But here's the truth no one likes to say out loud. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the foundation of it. Every single person who has achieved anything meaningful has one thing in common. They've failed, and failed often. Because failure is where you find out who you are. It's where the excuses die and the truth shows up. When you win, you celebrate. But when you lose, that's when you learn. You learn what works, what doesn't, who's really with you and who's not. You learn what you're made of when everything falls apart. Success is built brick by brick, and every one of those bricks is labeled failure. The problem today is that people have been conditioned to avoid pain, to avoid risk, to avoid looking bad. So they don't try. They play it safe. They call it being realistic. But the only thing that's real about that is regret. You can't win if you never swing. And when you do swing, when you step into something bigger than yourself, you will fail. That's guaranteed. But failure isn't a verdict. It's feedback. It's life saying, not yet. Try again. The people who go the distance understand this. They don't let one loss define them. They use it. They build from it. Because failure is not fatal. The only thing fatal is quitting. Every setback you face is secretly a setup, an opportunity to grow stronger, sharper, more disciplined. So if you're failing good, it means you're in the arena you're trying. And that's where all greatness begins. Not in success, but in struggle. Now let's talk about redefining failure, because that's where everything changes. Most people think failure means you're not good enough. They think it means they've been exposed, that they're weak or unworthy. But failure doesn't mean you lost. It means you tried. It means you had the courage to step outside the safety net and risk something real. You took a swing when others just watched. That's not weakness. That's strength. Because the easy choice is to stay comfortable, to hide behind excuses, to never test your limits. But the ones who grow, the ones who rise, are the ones who take the shot, even when they know they might miss. Listen to me. The difference between those who rise and those who stay down isn't luck, it's decision. You can choose to let failure define you, or you can choose to let it refine you. You're not broken. You're being built. Every scar you carry is proof that you've survived what tried to destroy you. And that means you're dangerous, because you know what pain feels like, and you're still standing. So stand taller, because your comeback story is being written right now. And one day you'll look back and say, that moment, the one I thought would break me, became the moment that made me. Don't hide from failure. Harness it, because your bounce back is what the world's been waiting to see. The truth is, failure is not a reflection of your worth. It's a sign of movement. It means you're in motion, you're experimenting, you're evolving. And that's where breakthroughs come from. Not from comfort, but from collision. Every innovation, every achievement, every great discovery in human history came from someone who was willing to fail. So stop letting the fear of failure rob you of your potential. You don't have to get it right every time. You just have to keep moving, because failure doesn't break you. It builds you. It strips away illusion and forces you to face reality. It's not something to fear. It's something to use. Pain, it's one of those things we've been taught to run from, to numb, to avoid at all costs. But what if pain isn't punishment? What if it's a signal, a message trying to get your attention? See, most people believe that when they're hurting, it means something's wrong with them or with their life. They think pain is unfair, random, cruel. But the truth is, pain is one of the most honest teachers you'll ever have. It doesn't lie. It doesn't sugarcoat. It points straight to what's broken, what's missing, what needs to change. Pain says, wake up. You're not living aligned with who you really are. And yet, instead of listening, most people drown it out. They scroll, they binge, they distract. They do anything but confront it. But ignoring pain doesn't heal it. It deepens it. Pain is not a life sentence. It's a signal that something in you is calling for growth. It's life's way of demanding evolution. And here's the reality. If you try to build a life without pain, you build a life without depth. Growth and comfort can't coexist. Every time you've grown stronger, wiser, or more resilient, it was because you faced something hard. Pain refines you. It burns off arrogance, entitlement, and ego. It humbles you, but it also hardens you. Not in a cruel way, but in a way that prepares you. When you understand that pain is a guide, not a curse, everything changes. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That shift, that's where your breakthrough begins. Because pain doesn't show up to destroy you. It shows up to rebuild you better than before. Now, ownership, this is where your comeback really starts. Because until you take responsibility, nothing changes. You can blame circumstances. You can blame people. You can even blame bad luck. But the truth is, as long as you're blaming, you're powerless. Every moment you spend pointing the finger outward, you're giving away control. And when you give away control, you surrender your ability to rise. Ownership isn't about guilt. It's about power. It's saying, yes, I failed. Yes, I messed up. But this is my life, and I'm taking it back. That's strength. That's maturity. Because the second you take full responsibility for where you are, you take back the authority to change it. Most people live their entire lives waiting for permission, for circumstances to shift, for someone to come fix it, but no one's coming. And that's not depressing. It's liberating. Because once you accept that it's on you, you realize you don't need saving. You need action. Ownership is not about self-blame. It's about reclaiming control. It's about understanding that even if something wasn't your fault, it's still your responsibility to rise from it. You can't rewrite the past, but you can rewrite the narrative. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. That's where your power lies, not in escape, but in ownership. Because the moment you take full responsibility is the moment you start your comeback. We live in a culture obsessed with results, instant, shiny Instagram, perfect results. But that's not how real success works. The truth is, success isn't one big dramatic moment. It's a process, a grind, a series of small, often invisible steps that no one sees. The world tells you to chase the outcome, the title, the trophy, the applause. But when you're obsessed with the end, you stop respecting the process that gets you there. Detaching from the outcome doesn't mean giving up your goals. It means learning to fall in love with the work itself. Because if you only feel worthy when you win, you'll never be free. You'll always be a slave to the scoreboard. Real winners understand that greatness comes from consistency, not perfection. They don't focus on whether the world is watching. They focus on getting better every day. Progress, not approval, is what builds champions. And here's what no one wants to admit. Most people quit not because they can't do it, but because they don't see instant results. They confuse delay with denial. They think, if I don't win now, it must not be for me. That's nonsense. Every success story you've ever admired is just someone who refused to stop showing up. When you detach from the outcome, you stop chasing validation and start chasing growth. And growth, not glory, is what turns effort into excellence. Now, let's talk about the voice inside your head, the one that never shuts up. You know what I'm talking about. That voice that says, you can't, you're not good enough. Why even try? Your self-talk is either your greatest ally or your most dangerous enemy. It's not just background noise. It's the script your life follows. If you're constantly telling yourself you're broken, you'll start living like you are. The way you speak to yourself becomes the lens through which you experience the world. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people talk to themselves in a way they'd never talk to someone they love. They bully themselves. They shame themselves. They replay every mistake like it's a highlight reel. Then they wonder why they feel stuck. But here's the shift. You can't rise while your mind is pulling you down. You can't rebuild a strong life with a weak inner dialogue. Every word you speak to yourself is programming your reality. You want a different life. Start with different language. Replace I failed with I learned. Replace I can't with I'm becoming, because your brain listens to your voice more than anyone else's. If you want power, feed your mind with strength. Talk to yourself like someone worth believing in, because you are. Every comeback, every breakthrough begins in the mind. The people who rise after failure aren't the ones who never doubt. They're the ones who learn to talk back to their doubt. They stop letting fear narrate their story. When you master your self-talk, you stop reacting and start leading your life. Because confidence isn't magic, it's repetition. It's the daily decision to speak truth louder than fear. Rejection? It's one of those words that hits hard because it feels personal. You put your heart into something and the world says no. You try, you reach out, you take a risk, and the door slams in your face. Most people take that as a sign they're not good enough. They think rejection means they're finished. But what if it doesn't? What if rejection isn't the end, but a redirection? Sometimes the door closes because you're knocking on the wrong one. Sometimes life says no because it's trying to steer you toward a better Oz. We don't like to hear that because it means surrendering control. We want every plan, every dream, every path to unfold exactly how we pictured it. But life doesn't work that way. And thank God it doesn't, because if it did, we'd all end up trapped in the limits of our first idea. Rejection hurts. Of course it does. But it's also one of life's most honest filters. It removes what's not meant for you. It reveals who's truly in your corner and who never was. Every time you face rejection, You're being invited to rise, to rethink, to refine your approach. You're being shown something you couldn't see when you were comfortable. And maybe, just maybe, that closed door is saving you from settling for less. The people who go the farthest aren't the ones who never hear no. They're the ones who stop taking no personally. They understand that rejection doesn't define their worth. It redirects their path. Because what's meant for you won't require begging, chasing, or proving. When you finally find the right door, it won't slam. It'll swing open because you've become the person ready to walk through it. Now, look around. Who's standing next to you? Who's in your ear, shaping your mindset, feeding your focus? Because the truth is, your environment will either build you or break you. The people closest to you are like mirrors. They reflect back what you believe about yourself. If you surround yourself with complainers, cynics, and quitters, you'll start to sound like them, and eventually you'll start to live like them. But when you're around people who challenge you, who demand your best, who see your potential even when you don't, everything changes. Growth is contagious when you're around builders. The harsh reality is that most people settle for comfort over challenge. They stay surrounded by those who make mediocrity feel normal. But if you're serious about bouncing back stronger, you need people who won't let you stay small. You need friends who will call you out, not just cheer you on. You need voices that remind you what's possible, not what's easy, because energy is transferable. Spend enough time around dreamers, and you'll start dreaming bigger. Spend enough time around victims, and you'll start making excuses. The choice is yours. Every comeback story is powered by community. Not the crowd, but the circle. The ones who push you, not the ones who pity you. Surround yourself with builders, and you'll rise with them. Fear, it's one of the most powerful forces shaping human behavior. It keeps people from taking risks, from speaking truth, from chasing the life they actually want. And here's the thing, fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. It disguises itself as logic, as caution, as just being realistic. But at its core, fear's a thief. It steals potential. It convinces you that what could go wrong matters more than what could go right. And the more attention you give it, the more it grows. Because fear thrives on focus. Whatever you feed with your attention gets stronger. And most people spend their entire lives feeding the wrong thing. They replay every worst case scenario in their mind like a movie. And then they wonder why they're paralyzed. The people who break free aren't the ones who never feel fear. They're the ones who learn to starve it. They stop giving it airtime. They choose to focus on what they can control. Their effort, their discipline, their attitude. You can't eliminate fear, but you can shrink it. Every time you act in spite of it, it loses power. Every time you step forward when everything in you wants to retreat, you remind yourself who's in charge. That's how courage is built, not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of it. You either feed your fear or you feed your focus, but you can't do both. One will grow, the other will die. And if you want to build a life worth living, start feeding your focus. Because fear doesn't deserve your attention. Now let's talk about forgiveness, not the kind that involves other people, but the kind that most of us avoid forgiving yourself. It's strange how we can show compassion to others, but none to ourselves. We hold on to guilt, to shame, to mistakes from years ago, dragging them into every new chapter of our lives. And we pretend it's accountability, but it's not. It's self-punishment. You can't move forward if you're still chained to your past. The longer you cling to guilt, the heavier your future becomes. Forgiving yourself doesn't mean you're excusing what happened. It means you're refusing to be defined by it. You're acknowledging, yes, I failed. Yes, I fell short, but I'm not staying there. The truth is, growth requires grace. You can't rebuild while holding rubble. If you spend all your energy reliving what went wrong, you'll never have the strength to create what's next. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the understanding that you can't heal in a constant state of self-attack. The people who bounce back from failure aren't perfect. They're just quick to let go. They learn, they adjust, they move on. Because they understand that the past can only hold power if you keep revisiting it. You can't rewrite yesterday, but you can redeem tomorrow. And that starts with one act, letting yourself off the hook. You did the best you could with what you knew. Now it's time to move. You're not your mistakes. You're your recovery from them. Setbacks, they're not fun, they're not glamorous, and they never come at a convenient time. But here's the twist. Sometimes the very thing that looks like it's ruining your life is actually setting the stage for your greatest breakthrough. Every setback carries a message, a setup hidden beneath the chaos. But most people never see it because they're too busy asking, why me? Instead of, what is this preparing me for? We live in a world that celebrates instant wins and overnight success, but nobody talks about the detours, the moments when life pulls the rug out from under you. Yet those moments, the ones that sting, the ones that shake you to your core, are often the ones that transform you. You don't grow on the mountaintop, you grow in the valley. You don't develop grit when everything's going right. You build it when everything's falling apart. A setback forces you to reevaluate, to get honest, to rebuild stronger. It strips away illusion and shows you what you're really made of. What you think is a delay might just be divine timing. What feels like rejection might be protection. Sometimes life breaks your plans because your plans were too small. Every great leader, every successful person, every comeback story you admire, they all went through this. They all faced moments where everything seemed lost, only to realize later that the pain was preparation. That's the pattern of life breakdown, breakthrough, build. And here's the part no one says. Your greatest victory is still ahead, no matter where you are right now, no matter how many times you've fallen. As long as you're breathing, your story isn't done. People love to count themselves out after failure. They decide it's too late, they missed their chance, they're not meant for more. But that's a lie, a convenient one. The truth is, every comeback begins when you decide to stand back up. Life will try to convince you you're finished. But if you're still here, you're not finished. You're in process. The most powerful stories are born from the ashes of defeat. They don't come from people who had it easy. They come from people who got knocked down hard and refused to stay there. There's something unshakable about a person who's been broken and rebuilt. They stop fearing failure because they've lived through. They stop chasing validation because they've learned who they are. And that's where true victory begins. Not when you win once, but when you realize you can lose everything and still rise. You've got chapters left to write. You've got battles still worth fighting. The next level of your life is waiting for the version of you that refuses to quit. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more fighters. People who've been through hell and came back with purpose. So don't bury your dream just because it's bruised. Stand up, step forward, because your greatest victory, the one that will define you, hasn't even happened yet. Listen to me. The difference between those who rise and those who stay down isn't luck, it's decision. You can choose to let failure define you, or you can choose to let it refine you. You're not broken, you're being built. Every scar you carry is proof that you've survived what tried to destroy you. And that means you're dangerous because you know what pain feels like and you're still standing. So stand taller because your comeback story is being written right now. And one day you'll look back and say, that moment, the one I thought would break me, became the moment that made me. Don't hide from failure. Harness it because your bounce back is what the world's been waiting to see.